Welcome to week 3. Hope everybody's doing well. Couple things I just wanted to review a little bit of the content from week 2. I want to look at Blackboard and look at what's coming for week 3. And then I really just want to hear your questions. So I want to hear any questions. It can be about the program as a whole. It could be about this class. It could be whatever you need to help you be successful. Let's put it that way. So I'm kind of open to suggestions and don't have a whole lot of agenda items on that end of things. So let's jump into week 2. And I am going to ask some of you who are on the call. I know you're not sharing video, and that's fine. But if you would unmute either by pushing your space bar or clicking the unmute button on your microphone. Does anyone have any specific questions regarding week 1? We're going all the way back there to any comments that I left on your assignment where you're like, I don't understand what you mean. I thought I did that. Remember, we're asking questions to seek to understand, and it allows me to make sure that I'm being clear on my communication, and so that you can then build off of that in future assignments. So of the 3 of you that are here, do you have any questions? And I'll give you a minute to go back maybe and look at week 1 and see comments that were left. I'm looking at some of your notes from your assignment. Anybody?
They were very helpful, Dr. J. Great comments, and they will help me to complete the future assignments. So no questions, great comments. Thank you.
Okay, well, I really appreciate you being willing to share that you're accepting it, not as trying to find anything you're doing wrong or being like, why didn't you do this? Every single one of you at some point is going to have to complete your master's capstone project and your research and analysis class. Everything that I'm telling you here, when I write things like, this is vague, or, and this wasn't what I wrote in Swati's, but if I write anything like, don't end a sentence in a preposition, don't use quotation marks like it's a sarcastic thing or something else, the use of references, listing references that weren't cited within your document, things like that. We want to make sure that we understand what's expected and how to practice those skills now. So when we get to our research class, it doesn't just hit us all in the face. But that's what these classes are for. It's to learn how to do this. You didn't know how to do this before and you weren't supposed to. It's okay, but don't let the mistakes happen a second time. I try to take really good notes. Anything else? I think one of the biggest things, and now I'm looking at my notes too, I'm remembering, one of the biggest things is to remember when you use pronouns, they have to have a clear antecedent. The antecedent is the word that the pronoun is replacing or referencing. So when I write a sentence that says, the children that are helped, that doesn't work. The children who are helped, that works, because the antecedent of who is children. It's a person. Remember, we can't have a subject and a pronoun in the same sentence together. So we can't say Johnny, he went to the store. It's either Johnny or it's he. You can't have both of them. That is not academic writing. I think that's it. Making sure that we're still using the correct in-text citations. Please, please, please go back and watch that PowerPoint recording of APA writing guidelines, and we can look at it again in the course here in just a minute for where it is. But that really outlines your 2 options for making citations. Either you put it in the sentence according to Smith, and then in parentheses, it's the date of a publication, comma, and then you spill everything that Smith had to say. Or you just write it all out there. Some of it is Smith, some of it is you, some of it's whatever. And then at the last sentence of that paragraph, if all that information came from only one source, you put parentheses, Smith, comma, and then the publication date, parentheses, period. It has to be housed within. You can't mix and match those. It's either one way or the other. So make sure you're watching that PowerPoint to determine that. All right, any other questions from week 1? I think we're good. Oh, numbers. Don't forget, numbers 10 and below have to be written out, spelled out. THREE is the number 3. You cannot start a sentence with a number. You can't. You can if you write it out, but it's awkward. Try to frame your sentences so that your numbers are in the middle if you're using statistics or any sort of percentages or things like that. Now, on our analysis, it was a little odd because we had some of you had tons of information and some of you didn't. So that's where I used it as an opportunity to guide you with that. It wasn't necessarily lots of points taken off at all. Points were only lost if flow, communication, content was missing. Maybe you just gave really vague and there just wasn't a lot of, I left you really specific comments, or I should have. If you ever look at your grade and you look at the rubric and you just go, I don't get it, please reach out to me. Please reach out and say, Dr. J, would you have 5 minutes for a Zoom session? I just really want to understand why I earned the grade I earned. I'm not asking for special privileges or to get any points back. I just want to understand. That's the right mentality to have. And who knows, maybe we will find a mistake that I made. I am human. All right, so let's talk about week 2. Hopefully you enjoyed the fact that really you were just looking at 2 overviews, that overview 4.1 and 5.1 within the significant events in American education and the educational pioneers. I've looked at quite a few assignments from week 2. And it really looked great. I love how you did the 3 clear sections in there. Some of you used tables for section 2. Some of you used paragraphs and narrative writing. Absolutely fine. It's great to do it either way. Any questions about week 2? I haven't gotten those grades back to you yet. I finished the other class today. My goal is to get you guys done as soon as possible. But let's do this. I'm going to share my screen and we are going to look at week 3, which is right here. We're dealing with philosophical roots of education. Remember, we always want to look at the overview and the learning resources. So within the learning resources, this is really important, especially for those of you who have not had EDF 7110 yet, which is the foundation of learning theories. That's what we learned about behaviorism, constructivism, social cognitive theory, how learning occurs. If you haven't had that class yet, this content might be a little new to you, but it's not anything you can't grasp. So this first video here that says learning theories, that's put there as an overview, even a reminder maybe for those of you who had 7110 about the learning theories, because in your assignment this week, you're going to choose your learning theory, and we're going to get to the assignment later. This has a bunch of videos in it, everything from teaching and learning to the Native Americans, kind of supporting the articles that you're going to read and things like that. But you're going to want to make sure that you spend some time there just seeing if any of that is an extra support to you. Maybe you don't need it, you're good to go. Fabulous. Within our discussion prompt this week and everything else, you've got this article about the Indian Education for All. Are you reading this whole thing? No, it's just there as a resource, right? And it goes through, I'm gonna go back here. There's also Native American history and culture boarding schools. And then here's your learning theories, which I think is the same video. Oh no, that's right, it's an article. So this gives you a quick overview of behaviorist, cognitive, constructivist, and humanist. We don't use humanist in ours, really, because it's super, super broad. So I would avoid that one. I'm not sure they knew that was in there. Avoid humanist. I'll try to remember to put that in the announcements so that people don't get messed up. All right. So there's all your resources, tons of learning resources and things to go off of. Then you have your prompt. You've got your knowledge, the history between Native Americans and the educational system. I thought there was an article from ASCD you were supposed to read. With assimilation, Native Americans were forced into here, the policies enacted. Remember, we're talking about the philosophy of education. And if you're really looking at this, you're saying to yourself, What was the philosophy of the people who thought, I know it's a good idea. Let's take those beautiful Native American people, let's strip them of their beautiful hair, their beautiful clothing, their beautiful songs and traditions, and let's put them in jumpers and cut their hair and give them a white man's name. Yeah, that's a great idea. There was a philosophy behind this. It was not somebody who just woke up and decided, let's try it. There was a purpose behind it, and it was, well, it was very intentional and it was very lasting. Okay, I'm going to make sure here. Okay, I'm going to double check because if I remember correctly, there should be an ASCD article in here as well that you're supposed to read. And maybe I missed it. Nope, this is the one I'm looking for. Yay, Subtle Evolution of Native American Education. Really, really important that you at least glance through all of these articles and get enough context that you can reference something in order to be able to have a really solid response within your discussion. So just look through the resources, you're good to go. Some of you have probably already filled that out. All right, let's get to the assignment for week 3 because I want to go through each of the sections very clearly. This is your personal statement regarding the philosophies and theories that align with your understanding of not only how learning occurs, but also what role education should play in the lives of students. So in your introduction, you're going to provide an overview regarding the learning theory or theories you subscribe to when preparing instructional assessment materials. This introduction, please hear me. This is where we talk about behaviorism, constructivism, whatever it is that you align with, social cognitive, those 4 that are in that video. Do not use humanist. This is where you tell me, how do you think learning happens? Then you're going to go to your philosophy of education, the philosophical approach that best aligns with your teaching style. There is an entire chart in your textbook about the philosophy of education. If you look at the very top of it, it'll say philosophy of education. Don't get confused with theory of education. The charts are very clearly labeled. Please do yourself a favor. Don't read the whole chapter. Just find those charts. I'll try to find them in VitalSource if we have time. Then your theory of education, evaluate the educational system and structure within your location. So where you live, where you work, which theory is implemented the most? Do you agree or disagree with it? Provide explicit examples to support it. If you prescribe to a different theory of education, what theory do you prefer and why? So you might identify one thing within your school district, but you align with the other. Same thing here, philosophical approach that best aligns with your teaching style. So yes, you're going to use those personal pronouns. My teaching style best aligns with the philosophy of, boom. And the needs of your students. Tell us or describe how that chosen philosophy aligns with your learning theory. So you see we're making the connection. So if I chose behaviorism up here, then I'm going to choose a philosophy and tell how that connects and why that really aligns with my style. Because your philosophy is about you. It's not so much about the students and the system around you. The theory of education is about the system that's around you. And in your conclusion, you're going to summarize and state your views regarding knowledge, education, schooling, and teaching and learning. These are all very clearly outlined within your chapter. Address the purpose, basis, and importance for each area. Articulate the role schools and teachers should have in influencing students' skills and perspectives. You can read all of these questions and make sure that you're addressing each of those as clearly as possible. So within the grading rubric for this whole assignment, if my computer would be a little slower, here we go. You'll see exactly what should be included in your assignment. Just tell us which philosophical approach. We see mastery of it within you explaining not only the components of that philosophy, but its impact or ramification on the learning process. So you're analyzing it, you're explaining it, then your theory. You have a clear stance whether you agree or disagree. Maybe you don't agree with how your school district approaches their theory of education. Okay, well, tell us why. What parts of it do you not like? And then in your conclusion. So always review these. Remember, you see here that you have 2 sources correctly cited. So what are your 2 sources going to be? Well, it's probably going to be one from what your learning theory is. Your other one's going to be your textbook. And you could also find something maybe from a search within the library for how learning occurs or what philosophies to go with. You have 2 sources cited in your paper and listed in your reference page. So you want to make sure that you actually used it correctly in your paper. And this is why I went back to week 1, because I want to make sure that my comments there made sense to you so that you could apply what I gave you there into your paper for week 3. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute and then ask if anyone has any questions. Questions, insights?
I have one, Dr. J.
Yeah.
That is about the theories, the learning theories. There is one in the video, in one of the videos, it mentioned about connectivism. Is that something you would approve of us to think about? Just wondering.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that would work. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for asking, because it's really more just along the lines of the humanism piece of it. It's very fluffy.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anybody else?
So our one paper from learning theory should help us.
Oh, tremendously. Yes. Yeah. All those graphic organizers that you made, all of those. Yes. Anybody else? What chapter are you supposed to read this week? Do you guys remember? Let me look back.
Six.
Is it 6? Okay. Yes, yes. I was trying to find those. Okay. Let's look together, because this might help you when you are in your textbook as well. So here's chapter 6. Okay, see all these? Realism, pragmatism, existentialism. Okay, you got to know which ones are philosophies and which ones are theories of education. I love our internet. It's so great. Okay, so even if you looked here, look what it says. Existentialism is a philosophy that encourages individuals to define themselves by making significant personal choices. If I teach in a Montessori school where children are allowed to choose what they study and what projects they complete and what assignments they do, or I'm in a CAPS program or a 21st century program where it's completely driven by students, maybe this is the philosophy that my district utilizes, is existentialism, which is really hard to say. I'm going to go here. Oh, that's a good chart. I forgot about that one. So philosophies are on this end of the spectrum where they're very general and wide ranging. That's why a district or a school can implement them. Whereas the theories, not learning theories, theories of education are on this side, because that's more in line with you and how you work with the students that you work with, because each of us have kind of different things that we're doing. If we're a GA and we're a coach, our theory of education is going to be loosely based maybe on a philosophy, but it might be a little bit different because we have a specific goal in mind. Make sure you know these terms. It's fantastic to see the, I guess, crossover between things and what metaphysics is in one versus the other. Okay, so look, here's your overview 6.1. These are your philosophies of education. This is what you choose from in your assignment right here. Idealism, realism, pragmatism, existentialism. And what I love is that if you understand what metaphysics, epistemology, I hate that word, all of these things are, who cares about the proponents, right? Educational implication, that's probably where I'm going to start. And really, what does it matter? Here's your philosophy of education. Come on, baby. And of course, it explains it all in the text, but really, by looking at that chart, you probably should be able to kind of see one that just makes sense to you and grab onto it. Okay, existentialism. Oh, man. Here we go. Theories of education. These are the 1, 2, 3, 4 you choose from. Perennialism, essentialism, progressivism, and critical theory. So if you choose, well, depending on your learning theory, behaviorism, constructivism, like you said, Swati, even connectivism, that would work. Remember, what is the aim of this theory? What kind of curriculum do they use there? What are the implications? We don't really care about the proponents. Some people really do care about the proponents because they truly believe that one theorist understood it better than another. And so they're going to go with whatever they say. My opinion is go with what works best for you. Okay, I'm so glad we found this. So overview 6.1 and overview 6.2 are what you're looking for. And those are your two pieces of your paper. The third piece that isn't included in here is learning theory, not theories of education, learning theory. How does learning occur? And that's where those videos that are there and that article, you can even do a Google search. What are top learning theories for, whatever else? And if you have a question about it, throw it out on Pronto. Say, is anybody else using this one for their learning theory? See if anybody bites. You might help somebody out, and I'll be able to catch it that way as well and go, whoa, no. That's one that somebody came up with on a blog. You need something that is research-based and has been tested and is reliable and something that's actually usable in the classroom. Okay, sorry for the pain of looking through that textbook, but overview 6.1 and 6.2 are going to be your friends for this week. Remember, you have to have two sources. So one source is going to be the textbook, of course, and your second source might be something where you go and find something that supports why you disagree with the theory of education that your district or your school uses. Why do you think it would be better to do a different one? Find one on that chart that you think actually is a better fit and explain to us why. Go find one little piece of evidence from a piece of research or a survey that's peer-reviewed and scholarly, right? We're not getting this from a blog or somebody's idea or morning talk show. We're getting this from a scholarly source and we're putting it into our paper. Any questions about week 3? I know it's a lot, but it's good. It really is one of those assignments that kind of unfolds on its own as you go. And so once you get into it, it's not as bad as it seemed. That's easy to say because I don't have to write it, but I've seen these a few times in this class and yeah. Okay. So we are going to jump ahead to week 4, and this is going to be our final thing that we do together this evening. We're going to keep this under 30 minutes if at all possible, unless we have any other questions. Week 4, your assignment is from chapter 11. You're going to read about the upper class, middle class, working class. And then they introduce you to a new group called the underclass. And they use these terms to make sure we understand the variables in the environment that a student comes from that is 100% out of the student's control. A 9-year-old does not get to determine where they live, what they eat, or what kind of interaction they have with the adults in their lives. That is decided for them because they are 9. So we have to be careful to make sure we're separating those. And as an educational system, the question is, are we really taking those factors into account when we look at equitable practices and inclusive environments? So you're supposed to make sure in that second paragraph there that you have a really good overview of the issues facing the working class. It lists 13 obstacles in section 11.3e. I'll let you go look at that later. You are going to analyze your school or district regarding the top 3 obstacles currently presenting issues in classrooms. So if you're not in a school right now, if you're in a business, if you're in, if you're in a university, you are in a school, but you need to find out from maybe others and do a little interviewing, do a little questioning, find some things out. If I worked for a business in a corporate company, I would want to know this as well. What's keeping people from coming in my doors and purchasing my product or being successful within the programs that I'm putting forward? So you're going to present the 3 obstacles and you're going to propose a solution or alternative approach for just one of them. 3 obstacles, 1 idea for like, how could we fix this? How could we approach this? Use resources from your textbook. I'm telling you, there's so much great in there. And align your suggestions with your learning theory and your philosophical approach to education. So your philosophy, remember that was very personal, and your idea for how learning occurs, behaviorism, all that. Not theory of education. Remember, that's outside of us. That's what our school district puts on us. So we're not going to be connecting with that. This is an analysis and response assignment. It requires you to move beyond only seeing statistics to seeing students and their unique needs. Reference the influence of home within your solution. How could families support their students to become more involved in creating a change in outcomes? Okay, you've got a title page. You do not need to do references. You're going to avoid quotes. You are going to utilize double spacing, and you're going to use headings if you want to support it. These are optional headings. However, I would highly suggest using them. The only reason that I think that they're optional in here for this assignment is because for some people, it's better to present an obstacle and a solution within one so that it all kind of makes sense, and then go to the next 2 problems. And for others, it really makes sense to present the 3 obstacles and be very clear about them, and then move on to the solution and then the conclusion. But this allows you to just make sure that it's very easy to understand what you're talking about. Any questions about the week 4 assignment? Good. I'm just double checking the rubric to make sure. Yeah, see, the rubric says nothing about in-text citations or references, so you're golden. I hope you enjoy a lot of these conversations. I hope you're feeling like as you're reading through all of this and gaining a better understanding of it, you're feeling more confident about being an advocate for your students. I think that's one of my biggest things is I want anyone who completes this program to be able to walk into a board meeting, to a PTO meeting, to their principal's office and say, I know we've always done da, 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 da. I have an idea. Would you be willing to entertain that with me? Maybe we have something that could potentially be very offensive to a group of students or a minority. Maybe we're just not providing the supports and the service for certain students because we've forgotten to look at some of the issues within their family structure or within their system. So we want you to become advocates. We want you to feel confident. We want you to have some research in your back pocket so that you can reference things. Like imagine pulling the word out. Well, this is very, perennialism really says that, and everybody just goes, what? It's just kind of fun sometimes. Not that you need to necessarily do that to show off, but sometimes you'll see it and you'll go, oh my gosh, I know what that is now. I know why that has the impact that it has. You're gaining incredible insight. You're covering lots and lots of materials. So be kind to yourself. Take it one thing at a time, and please reach out for help. Please connect with each other on Pronto or through email or anything else. Even if you just get together to work on a project and you just say, let's Zoom from this time to this time and let's work together through this chapter because I'm really struggling to understand it. With discussions, remember, this is your take on things. So we're not looking for right or wrong. We're looking for in-depth and mastery. Do you understand it? Yeah, I understand. I just disagree with it. Great. Tell us why. We're not looking for yes men here. We're looking for an understanding of the content and an analysis and an application of it when appropriate. Any other questions or anything I can help with or support you with?
Mine is very unrelated to just this class, so I'll wait if anybody else has other
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah, and maybe I'll stop the recording and then I mean, do you feel like it's a question that's for the good of the group because there are others who might be in that situation, or is it a little more specific? Not sure.
Maybe more personal.
Okay.
I don't know.
It's okay. That's great. That's why we have these meetings, and you took the time to come. So I want to answer your personal question, but I appreciate you recognizing the content of it. Swati, did you have something?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I just saw
Thank
you,
you.
so I didn't want to cut you off. Joey, you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thanks.
All right, guys, we'll keep working on that. Your title pages are looking great. Don't forget that you need to have the course number and name. And you also need to make sure that you have Ottawa University and then what your concentration is, whether that's curriculum and instruction, elementary unified, building leadership or educational leadership, sorry, learning technologies, curriculum and instruction, whatever it is. Make sure you're identifying that, because that actually really makes a difference when it comes to what we have to turn into accreditation bodies so that we can show the percentage of people that we have in these classes that have different tracks that go with them. And we can present, and we always take your name off. We take any personal information off, but we present any sort of evidence that shows what skills you're understanding and learning. And we'll take maybe a portion of your paper, but we have to have that title page with it to prove that it wasn't something I wrote. I didn't make it up. All right, guys, well, I'm going to stop the recording here. And thank you so much for your time and for watching 34 minutes. That's not bad. We did good.